Okay, so if you're listening, you probably know that feeling, right? The deadline's right there. The task is super important. But somehow cleaning out your inbox or maybe just, staring at the ceiling
Mhm.
suddenly seems way more appealing than actually doing the work. We've all done it. Pushed that task back, ignored a deadline, decided, tomorrow. Tomorrow's the day I'll finally get to what really matters.
Yeah, that's not just common. It feels almost built in, doesn't it? Procrastination. We often just write it off as bad time management or worse, some kind of moral failing, like we just don't have enough willpower. But if you dig into what the ancient Stoics were saying, it's fascinating. They saw it completely differently as a philosophical mistake, a glitch in our logic right now in the present.
Exactly. And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're looking for a kind of shortcut, maybe, to push through that inertia, that mental drag.
Yeah.
We're going straight to the source, the really radical, but actually super practical wisdom of Stoicism to try and understand, the blueprint of delay and how to take it apart.
Right. And we're pulling from some heavy hitters of the Roman world. You've got Marcus Aurelius, literally the most powerful man on earth at the time. Then there's Epictetus, who started out as a slave and became this incredibly respected teacher, and Seneca, advisor to Nero, mega wealthy, navigating a pretty treacherous political scene where delaying could be, well, deadly.
Yeah.
What's amazing is, despite their totally different lives, their core strategies for getting things done, for acting ethically now, they're remarkably consistent. They work just as well for tackling your email as they did for, running an empire.
And that central idea, the quote that just perfectly nails the whole problem, it comes from Marcus Aurelius writing to himself, basically in his diary. He says, "You could be good today, but instead you choose tomorrow." Oof. That choice, right? That decision to put off being good or acting with integrity or just doing the right thing. That's what the Stoics wanted to dismantle. They focus on changing the internal thinking, the logic that even lets us make that choice. We really want to figure out how they stop choosing tomorrow.
Okay, so the absolute bedrock of practical Stoicism, it's all about psychology. They weren't really focused on the external stuff. They argued that the world itself, the tough project, the difficult client, not having a tough time, that's not what causes our stress or our fear or makes us put things off.
Hang on, I got to push back there a bit because, I feel actual physical stress when a huge deadline hits for something complicated. If the project isn't causing it, what is?
It's your judgments about it. That's the key Stoic insight. Think of it like 3 steps. First, there's the raw event, say, the giant scary spreadsheet you have to tackle. Then there's your judgment or your opinion about it. This is way too hard, or I'm definitely going to mess this up, or there's no way I have enough time. And then step 3 is your emotional reaction. The anxiety, the fear, the feeling of being stuck, which turns into procrastination. You're reacting to your story about the spreadsheet, not the spreadsheet itself.
Huh. So the knot in my stomach isn't actually about the task. It's about the disastrous narrative I've cooked up about what happens if I fail or if it's too hard.
Precisely. And Marcus Aurelius uses this distinction as like the ultimate tool for getting unstuck. He writes, if something external is causing you distress, it is not the thing itself that troubles you, but your own judgment about it. And this, he says, you have the power to eliminate now. Procrastination starts right there. With the judgment, you agree to the judgment that the task is unbearable or that failure is the end of the world.
Right. So if the Stoics are correct, then the real battle isn't forcing myself to sit down and work. It's winning the internal argument before I even sit down. It's about changing that judgment.
And Seneca took this even further. He basically said this mechanism is at the heart of almost all human suffering. He wrote, everything depends on opinion. Ambition, luxury, greed, all look back to opinion. It is according to opinion that we suffer. And then there's Zinger. Each man is as wretched as he is convinced himself he is. So if you convince yourself a task is horrible or that you're not up to it, you literally make yourself miserable through that belief. Delaying just feels like the only sane option then.
Wow. It really does sound like ancient cognitive behavioral therapy, doesn't it? Control the thought, control the feeling, stop the avoidance behavior. And this leads us straight into Epictetus's big idea, the one everyone knows, the dichotomy of control.
Yes, the dichotomy is absolutely crucial for tackling procrastination. Because delay, almost always, is a failure related to control. It happens when we're trying to guarantee something or get comfort from something that's actually not ours to control. Epictetus was really strict about this. You have to separate what's completely your responsibility, your sphere of action, from what's external, what's down to luck or fate or what other people think.
Okay, so break that down. What did the Stoics say is totally ours, like completely free from outside interference?
What's truly ours, truly free, is our will. our prohairesis, our faculty of choice, also our integrity, our commitment to acting rightly, and what they called virtuous shame, that inner sense of self-respect that guides us. Nobody can force you to give those up. Only you can choose to compromise them. On the flip side, what's outside our control? Pretty much everything else. Yeah. Our body, our possessions, our reputation, our health, success in the world.
Okay, right. And here's the connection, the really practical bit for someone just staring at that blinking cursor, wanting to avoid the task. The link to delay is when we put things off because we're waiting for the perfect time, or because we're scared of failing publicly, getting a bad review, losing face, whatever. We are laser focused on things that Epictetus would say are not our own. We're basically waiting for the universe to give us a guarantee before we act.
And while you're doing that, while you're waiting for the external world to line up perfectly, you're actively sacrificing the one thing that is yours. Your integrity in this moment. Your choice to make the effort. Choosing to delay today means choosing to compromise your inner life, your honesty, your self-respect for this totally unreliable hope of controlling some external outcome tomorrow. That's the error in logic they pinpointed.
Epictetus also gave us those three areas of philosophical training, right? The disciplines of desire, action, and assent. Where does procrastination fit in that model?
Yeah, procrastination is primarily a failure in the third one,
Yeah.
the discipline of assent. Or, as we said, prohairesis, rational choice, volition. Our will, our ability to choose, is the only thing fully under our command. If we assent to the judgment, this is too hard, or I could do this later, we are literally aiming our will, our prohairesis, towards the vice of sloth or cowardice instead of towards virtue, which is doing what needs to be done.
So prohairesis, that's like the engine of our rational self. When we procrastinate, we're basically hitting agree on a lie. The lie that we actually have more time, or that the discomfort of the task is worse than the hit to our own integrity if we delay.
Exactly. And that's why Epictetus didn't see his school as just a place to learn ideas. He called it a clinic, a hospital for souls. The goal wasn't just intellectual understanding. It was identifying and fixing these internal weaknesses, these faulty judgments, these bad assents that stop us from living properly right now. So procrastination, for a Stoic, isn't just being lazy. It's a serious failure of our rational soul to do its job in the present moment.
All right, so if we buy into this idea that the root problem is internal, it's our judgment, then the next obvious step seems to be changing why we're even doing the thing in the first place. I mean, if my main goal is just external success, like getting praise or avoiding criticism, then yeah, failure feels terrifying and putting it off is just self-preservation almost.
That's spot on. Procrastination absolutely flourishes when our goals are things the Stoics considered, frankly, unstable and not really worthy of our core focus way. Things like fame, money, other people's opinions, or achieving some kind of external perfection. These things are just inherently unreliable. They depend on factors outside us. They need perfect conditions we can never guarantee.
So step one in killing delay is a fundamental shift in what we're aiming for. What's the Stoic alternative? What's the revised goal?
The revised goal is the pursuit of genuine tranquility and virtue. Now, tranquility for the Stoics, it's not about being numb or indifferent, like some critics say. It's not a zombie-like state. It's actually a really robust state. It's the absence of those destructive negative emotions, anger, grief, anxiety, fear, and crucially, the presence of their positive counterpart, deep-seated joy.
Yeah, I love Seneca's description of that joy. It's not like fleeting happiness, right? It feels
No.
much more solid.
Absolutely. Seneca says this joy is deep and issues from deep within. You find it by delighting in your own internal resources, your character, your rational mind acting well. True Stoic joy, he suggests, is actually quite a serious business. It's tied to things like overcoming the fear of death and managing our desires for pleasure. If your joy comes from your own secure inner foundation, why on earth would you postpone the very thing virtuous action? Doing the right thing now that builds and secures that foundation.
Okay, that clicks. So if I tackled that difficult project today and I do it with integrity, it doesn't even matter that much how it's received externally. I've still deepened my internal resources. I've earned that solid kind of joy. But if I put it off, I'm actively undermining my inner life and inviting anxiety. Suddenly, the choice seems, well, clearer.
It injects immediate urgency, which leads right into the next big philosophical driver of procrastination. The illusion that time is infinite. We delay because we just assume tomorrow will always be there.
And Seneca is brutal on this point. He wrote a whole essay on the shortness of life, basically arguing that life isn't inherently short, but we make it short by wasting gigantic chunks of it.
Yeah, he argues the biggest folly is just assuming we're all going to cruise into our 80s or 90s. That assumption is what gives us permission to postpone life itself. We put off the hard things, the meaningful things, the things we're passionate about, until some imaginary future point, often, retirement.
Oh man, that resonates so much with modern life, doesn't it? People constantly deferring their dreams, or even just basic self-care until they've ticked some external boxes like wealth or career milestones.
And Seneca just cuts right through that. His challenge is relentless. Why put off living until most of your life is already gone? You might not even make it there. Or if you do, you might not have the health or the mental clarity to enjoy it. The goal isn't just to live as long as possible, it's to make full use of today, right now, not forgetting, he says, that it could perhaps be our last. Now, that perspective for a Stoic doesn't create morbid anxiety. It creates immediate ethical urgency. It forces you to act on your best judgment now.
And he distilled that urgency into this really powerful warning, almost like a daily mental command. Let us order our minds as if we had come to the end. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's account every day. Wow.
Now, this urgency brings up a really important and often misunderstood philosophical hurdle for anyone trying to get motivated using Stoicism, this idea of fatalism. The Stoics did believe in a kind of determined universe, a chain of cause and effect. So the obvious question is, if everything's predetermined by fate, why bother making any effort, especially painful effort? This is the famous lazy argument.
Right, the lazy argument. That's basically the philosopher's excuse for giving up, isn't it? If the outcome's already set, my actions don't change anything. So if I'm fated to finish this report successfully, it'll happen whether I start today or drag my feet. And if I'm fated to fail, well, why bother starting at all? Why act?
It's a critical point, because if the Stoics were just passive fatalists, their whole philosophy of action kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
But they weren't. They argued for fatalism about the past and about the present moment as it instantly becomes the past, but not about the future effort we need to make. The solution, which came from an earlier Stoic named Chrysippus, is this idea of co-fated efforts.
Co-fated. Okay, how does that work?
Chrysippus argued against the lazy argument by saying, look, outcomes and the necessary actions to reach them are bound together. They are co-fated. The classic example they used was getting well from an illness. The outcome recovery might be fated, but crucially, it's fated along with the necessary conditions. Calling the doctor, taking the medicine, doing what you're told.
Ah, okay, I think I see. So the effort isn't optional, even if the outcome is predetermined. The effort itself is part of the predetermined causal chain leading to that outcome. You can't have one without the other being fated too.
Exactly. Your effort, your choice to sit down and work diligently today, that's seen as part of nature's or fate's overall plan. We are required to act, understanding that the results, the external stuff like praise, success, money, those are ultimately external and subject to fate. But the effort itself, the virtuous action, that's internal, it's immediate, and it's our duty. Procrastination suddenly looks irrational because even if the final score is already written, our duty to play the game with integrity is co-fated, and fulfilling that duty is the only thing truly in our control.
So the second you choose to delay, you're not just failing yourself, you're kind of failing your role in the cosmos because your action was a necessary part of the plan all along. That really shifts the stakes. It's not, will I succeed anymore? It's, will I do my part? Will I act with integrity right now?
That's the whole game changer, and it demands you act now.
Okay, so we've laid out the Stoic diagnosis. Procrastination stems from faulty judgments about time, goals, and control, often reinforced by this mistaken idea that our effort doesn't matter if fate's involved. Now let's get really practical. Let's talk about the actual day-to-day techniques the Stoics use to force themselves into action and keep that mental discipline sharp. These are the shortcuts people are looking for.
Right. As we said, Epictetus saw his school as that clinic for souls. Stoic practice is basically intensive therapy. It's ruthlessly focused on finding and fixing those mental weak spots, those habits of delay. Philosophy, he insisted, isn't just reading. It needs relentless self-discipline and the right mental tools, the right doctrines to fix whatever's blocking us from living well.
We need to become our own soul doctor, diagnosing the delay and prescribing the fix. Okay, strategy one, and this one always feels a bit counterintuitive, like taking out procrastination insurance internally.
That's the premeditatio malorum, yeah. The premeditation of difficulties or negative visualization. It's not about being gloomy or pessimistic. It's purely about emotional preparation. The aim is to build resilience by deliberately thinking through what could go wrong before you start, what obstacles might appear, where might things get tough.
But wait, why does rehearsing failure stop procrastination? Isn't the fear of failure often why we procrastinate in the first place?
Because the thing that really drains our willpower, the thing that often makes us quit, is surprise. We get thrown off course when something unexpected happens, the internet dies, a key person doesn't deliver, we hit a section that's way harder than we thought. When you procrastinate out of fear, you're usually just imagining one big, vague disaster. Premeditation malorum forces you to get specific. Imagine all the likely small and maybe even large bumps in the road. Make them familiar before they happen.
Okay, so it takes the shock value away. When the obstacle does pop up, instead of freaking out, it's almost like, yes, I considered this might happen. It's just part of the predicted terrain.
Precisely. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, started his day doing exactly this. He'd mentally rehearse dealing with interfering people, ungrateful people, arrogant people, reminding himself their behavior stemmed from their own ignorance. For us, doing a task, it might mean thinking, okay, I'm starting this report. I anticipate the server will be slow. I predict at least 3 annoying interruptions. I predict feeling bored stiff after 30 minutes.
That's the genius of it. By mentally walking through the boring bits, the annoying bits, the difficult bits beforehand, they become expected hurdles, not surprise crises that make you want to give up. The focus shifts from avoiding pain to just executing the plan, hurdles and all.
Strategy 2 tackles the impulses that directly fuel delay. Our natural pull towards pleasure, like checking social media, and our aversion to the actual work, that feeling of, oh, just don't want to.
Yeah, procrastination feels so habit-driven. If my default habit is to seek comfort or distraction, how did the Stoics suggest breaking that pattern?
Epictetus had a really direct, almost physical recommendation for breaking strong, bad habits. If you know you're inclined towards immediate pleasure or ease reaching for your phone, putting off the hard stuff, he advises you to throw myself in the opposite direction, beyond the intermediate point, for the sake of training.
Whoa, that sounds pretty extreme. What does beyond the intermediate point actually look like for someone trying to, say, finish writing a thesis they keep avoiding?
It means deliberate overcorrection. If your habit is putting it off until late at night, force yourself to start first thing in the morning, maybe even tackling the hardest chapter first. If you usually waste 15 minutes scrolling before you even open the document, maybe sit for 15 minutes in uncomfortable silence, just directing your will towards the task. The idea is to make the initial counter-effort so strong that it shatters the inertia. You're building a new habit, even if it feels extreme at first. Eventually, it should settle into a more balanced, virtuous middle ground.
It's like pushing a pendulum way past the center in the other direction, so eventually it comes to rest where you want it, which is disciplined action, not lazy comfort. And this sense of urgency, of needing to act decisively against bad habits, we see echoes of this in other wisdom traditions too, right? It seems like a universal struggle.
Absolutely. The source material connects this Stoic idea to a Buddhist perspective, too. There's a text that asks, who is not exerting at the time for exertion, young, strong, possessed of laziness, does not find the way to wisdom? The core idea is the same, urgency in doing good. We have to be quick about it because, as the text suggests, the mind easily drifts towards wrongdoing or ease when virtuous action is delayed. Putting off the good action is, functionally, choosing the easier, wronger action right now.
Okay, so beyond these preemptive strikes and habit-busting moves, the Stoics were also big on constant self-awareness, like doing a daily checkup on your moral state. One good day wasn't enough.
That's the third practice, daily reflection and review. Seneca wrote about his evening routine. He wouldn't just list his achievements, he'd audit his responses. He'd ask himself, where did I mess up today? Where did my focus slip? How should I have handled that temptation to take the easy way out? It's the self-doctor, checking the patient's progress and tweaking the treatment for tomorrow.
But Epictetus seemed to demand even more than just a nightly review. He suggested we can't afford to wait until bedtime to realize we've failed the day.
Yeah, he pushed for focus every single moment of the day. He said we need to keep our core philosophical principles ready at hand, always, like a mariner sailing the ship. You can't just coast on last night's good intentions. You have to actively defend your judgment, your assent, in the present moment. That split-second decision prohairesis needs constant guarding against the lure of ease.
And he used that powerful analogy of life being like an ongoing contest, making the stakes feel really immediate.
He did. Epictetus often described life as an Olympic contest. He'd tell his students, basically, the whistle has blown, you can't wait any longer. He recognized that our progress towards virtue, towards a good life, is wrecked or preserved by a single day and a single event. He even told them to take the blows too, acknowledging it's tough. But the prize isn't just a medal. The contest is for real good fortune and happiness. If you frame that task you're avoiding, that awkward conversation, that complicated spreadsheet, as an Olympic event for your soul, you realize you can't afford to forfeit the present moment.
Right. You're not just trying to finish a spreadsheet. You're competing for your own character. And you don't win the character competition by sitting on the sidelines.
Now, all this talk about intense focus on internal judgment, constant self-monitoring, it often leads to a common criticism of Stoicism, especially today. People here retreat into the inner citadel and think it sounds, well, selfish, isolationist even. Like it's an excuse to ignore your responsibilities and tune out the world's problems.
Yeah, I can see that. It could sound like, hey, as long as I'm okay internally, who cares if I actually meet my deadline at work or help out in my community? How did the Stoics reconcile this deep internal focus with the very real demands of social life and duty?
That criticism really misses a core part of Stoic ethics. The inner citadel wasn't meant as a place to hide from your duties. It was the fortress where you build the strength for your duties. Epictetus was very clear on this. He said that excellence in your personal core, your will, your judgments, your prohairesis, is absolutely necessary for excellence in your social roles, as a friend, a parent, a citizen, an employee.
Okay, so if I'm constantly procrastinating, I'm not just letting myself down. I'm actually failing in my duties to others, my colleagues, my family, my friends, because I'm not bringing my best, most integrated self to those roles.
Exactly. For the Stoics, virtue is fundamentally cooperative. Epictetus argued that if you correctly identify your own self-interest with things like preserving integrity, patience, abstemiousness, and cooperation, then acting dutifully towards others becomes automatic. An internally disciplined person, free from the tyranny of runaway emotions and bad judgments, is naturally going to be a better, more reliable friend, partner, and citizen. Procrastination, therefore, isn't just personal, it's a failure of social duty, too.
That reframes it completely. My inability to start that project isn't just about me, it's potentially letting down the team.
It's a failure to properly use your rational, inherently social human capacity. And speaking of social, the strength needed for this duty. It's massively affected by the people we spend time with. That's another factor in procrastination we often overlook, the company we keep.
Right, the environment. Does it encourage action or does it normalize making excuses?
Epictetus had a really sharp warning about this. If you're genuinely trying to change your habits, trying to strengthen your will, hanging around the wrong crowd can be fatal to your progress. He used a great analogy. If you hang out with someone covered in soot, you're inevitably going to get some soot on you. If you spend your time with people who constantly put things off, moan about work, find external excuses for everything, you'll naturally start assenting to those same kinds of judgments yourself. Their mindset rubs off.
So the advice isn't just avoid bad company, it's more proactive than that.
Yes. It's about actively seeking out people who have the habits you want to build. Find people who are on the same path, maybe studying the same philosophy, or just people who understand and value what you're trying to achieve. This reinforces your own resolve to act now, like the recovering alcoholic choosing to go to meetings rather than hanging out at the bar. Your social setting either props up your faulty judgments or strengthens your good ones.
Okay, so ultimately, all these layers, understanding the dichotomy of control, feeling the urgency of time, practicing premeditation, choosing your company wisely, it all seems to converge on protecting and strengthening that core faculty, that prohairesis, our power of choice.
It really does. For the person battling procrastination, the final line of defense, the ultimate Stoic insight, is realizing that this rational choice, this commitment to integrity, is the only thing that truly needs protecting. Recognizing this becomes the highest barrier against giving in to the urge to delay.
Because even if other people disapprove of what you do, or even if you try your best and still fail externally, that's their business, or fate's business, as long as you acted rightly, with full effort.
Exactly that. Epictetus constantly reminds us, nobody can force you to compromise your will. The only thing you truly possess is your integrity. And that integrity demands action now, aligned with virtue, regardless of how hard it feels or what the outcome might be, because difficulty and outcome are external. They're not you. So the Stoic shortcut really is to bypass that whole internal debate about, do I feel like doing this? And just focus on the fact that virtuous action right now is a moral requirement of your character, period. Hashtag, outro.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, we've really tried to reframe procrastination, not just seeing it as laziness or poor planning, but as this deeper philosophical failure of judgment in the present moment, a failure to assent correctly. And the Stoic antidote seems to involve this intense daily self awareness, a radical shift in what we're aiming for, away from external rewards towards inner stability and virtue, really feeling the urgency of our limited time, and using these practical mental exercises like negative visualization and daily review.
And the core synthesis, I think, is incredibly empowering. By focusing all your energy, all your attention on the only territory you truly own, your judgments and your will you build this foundation for consistent, unblocked action. When you neutralize the anxiety about external factors you can't control, you basically remove the internal excuses you use to justify delay.
It really does create this almost existential push to act now. We started with Marcus Aurelius talking to himself, but maybe let's end with Epictetus, speaking directly to us, challenging us all right here with one last pretty provocative thought to take away.
He says, if you are careless and lazy now and keep putting things off and always deferring the day after which you will attend to yourself, you will not notice that you are making no progress, but you will live and die as someone quite ordinary.
And that really is the choice the Stoics lay before us today. To drift along, maybe living and dying as someone quite ordinary, constantly putting off our own progress, or to make the resolution today to live as a fully rational, responsible adult, embracing the challenge, embracing the contest right now. Thanks for diving deep with us on this one. We'll see you next time.